Alla, the first question to you is, what is the status of the latest royal decree on responsible gaming? What measures have come into force and which ones are still pending?
So now, 12 months after the approval of the decree, we can say that the numerous obligation requirements are already applicable in place. The decree is fully into force, because the most complicated requirements from the technical perspective, or let's say those more controversial, have entered into force just 2 weeks ago, the 15th of March. These are mainly the session for other games against the session for the game session for slots that we had so far. This is the rule for the in-play betting limits, the new rule. This is the prohibition for the use of credit cards for the deposits made by customers that are categorized as risky behavior and intensive behavior. Or, for example, a little bit polemic one about the prohibition of offering promotional activities not related to the gambling platform to those customers categorized as young. Now, about what is missing, what is pending. So, by September this year, operators and providers will need to ensure that the design of their games is in compliance with the regulation, which basically means that the presentation of the results of the game need to be clear, need to be shown in a clear way, and also will need to be restricted from certain encouraging messages. And also, about what is still pending, I would say the most important part, which is the technical reporting of all this new setup through the ICS to the DGOJ. Basically, the new data model has not been approved yet, which means that we are now currently like in this kind of transitory period where operators are already operating and have implemented this new setup, especially as we said for the other game session, and the different restrictions and requirements for the different categorizations of players. But this cannot be reported to the DGOJ through the ICS. The DGOJ circulated a draft regulation on the data model. This document is now has been sent to the European Commission, and while this regulation is following its legislative procedure, the DGOJ less than 2 weeks ago circulated some guidelines about this upcoming new data model with some essential questions and answers. And also we have learned important information, which is basically that the new data model is expected to be approved in June this year and will enter into force 9 months after. Operators will not be allowed to implement this new data model before the term of 6 months since the approval, which means that there is a mandatory minimum period. And last but not least, it has been confirmed also that these changes will not qualify as a substantial changes. So this means that operators will not need to certify nor homologated the technical system before the DGOJ.
Thank you very much. Once again, for everybody who just joined the webinar, or if you have a question to Alla, please join us for the Q&A session at the end. You can ask your question if you point your camera to the QR code on the right side of the screen. That points you to slido.com. Use the event code #GIS and pose your question there or upvote somebody else's question. Alla, second question to you here today. When do you think we can expect the new cross-operator deposit limits that the DGOJ has announced and that Jorge also referred to? And what do you think these limits will look like?
So, as to when can we expect the new cross-operator deposit limits to be approved, there is no information and there has been no further information. As previously Jorge has explained, the draft regulation was circulated in September. It was subject to public consultation ending mid of October. And the draft foresaw the entry into force of the regulation in 12 months after its approval. That has been already foreseen in the draft, but there has been no more information than that as of today. What we know is that the DGOJ is working on the technical deployment of the system. They are working on the technical development because this system will be basically monitored and controlled by the DGOJ. So the system will look like as follows. The DGOJ proposes this deposit limit system as complementary and independent to the current existing individual deposit limits upheld by each operator. Operators will need to have the technical means to connect their system to the DGOJ new systems, because the functioning will be as follows. A player will request to the operator to make a deposit. The operator, after verifying the individual deposit limits of the player and its system, will inform the DGOJ system about this player's request, basically for two purposes. One, to get the authorization to proceed with the deposit, and two, for the DGOJ to update the amount of accumulated deposits of the player in the system. So the DGOJ, after review and calculating the available margin, will provide that answer to the operator, who, in the case of authorization, will process the deposit through the payment method, and the DGOJ will update the accumulated deposit amount in the on their system. The draft setups by default deposit limits, which are of 600 euros daily, 1,500 weekly. And well, this is basically the functioning which, as Jorge has explained, it has different concerns in the industry. One main concern, for example, is that this system could hinder the competition in the Spanish market due to the tendency of players to concentrate their deposit in larger operators, or also concerns from the technical perspective, what's going to happen in the case of unavailability of the system, interruption of the system, and well, in the black market, as we said, to find other opportunities, options more attractive and less restrictive.
Good. Alla, thank you again. That was very, very helpful. Last question to you for today here. Our next question, we will be trying to look a bit further ahead. In addition to the Royal Decree on Responsible Gambling, what other regulatory changes can we expect in the coming months or years?
So again, as Jorge has explained, in this restrictive legal framework that we have, we all are now expecting regulations addressed to make the market more attractive, competitive, both for players, for operators, in terms of new products, in terms of innovation, which is absolutely necessary at this moment. Despite this, there are currently a few regulatory ongoing projects, like, for example, the modification of the data retention period from the current 6 years to 4 years, the location of the ICS, of the safe, of the vault, which is now in Spain, but is going to be open to other countries in the European Union, or the development of the algorithm by the DGOJ to identify customers under risky behavior, which is something that the DGOJ is working also on it. There is also a clear trend that we can see now, which is the fight and combat against fraud in gambling. Basically, in terms of match fixing, the aim is to establish a close collaboration between Sigma and the operators to fight against match fixing, and to identity fraud in collaboration between the DGOJ, the police, the tax agency, and the data protection agency. It has been recently circulated or approved a protocol of action against identity theft, basically due to a very big number of individuals who use third-party data to register with gambling operators, to obtain profits and avoid the income taxation. There are apparently a very big number of cases that are being registered in this sense. The gambling market cannot become a focus of attention of this problem, so there is currently an imperative need to establish protocols and mechanisms to fight against this, to mitigate this problem, and this is definitely one of the main concerns and projects that is being right now held by the authorities.